Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 35. And now for something a little bit different. This week, guys, I have a real treat for you. I have my two good buddies, Troy and Brad, here to join me. Thank you guys. Welcome. We're going to be talking about the live action 1996 Crying Freeman film. So, guys, thank you so much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure. You guys were kind enough to have me on when we talked about Bonfire of the Vanities on your show a couple months ago, and I had an absolute blast. So I figured this would be an awesome time to talk about a much beloved, at least in my opinion, um, fun action film. So thank you guys. Welcome both of you.
Yeah,
How
thanks
you
for
guys
having
doing?
us.
Yeah,
Oh
thank
yeah,
you, big time, John. This is exciting. So
yeah. No, listen. Anytime to talk about a Mark Dacascos action film, I love Mark Dacascos. He's one of those underrated guys. So you guys have your wonderful podcast, Not a Bomb. Would you guys want to talk about like that at all? Talk about what inspires you as a film lovers? Talk to our audience a little bit about Not a Bomb, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
Your
What
podcast.
our thesis on our podcast is looking back at films that either financially flopped or the critics didn't like, and kind of going back and re-examining those films to see whether or not they deserved being a bomb. And we have been doing it for almost 4 years now, which is crazy. And there are times where we have guests like John, but most of the time it's Troy and I kind of doing the back and forth. So we have done everything from Samurai Cop to Big Trouble in Little China to The Thing to what did we just do? Oh, remakes. So we did the Total Recall remake. So we do everything, and films keep bombing. So it looks like Troy and I can do this for a long time if we choose to. So
Yeah, I think you guys are not going to run out of material. I was joking because I earlier today. So here's the kind of idiot that I am. I double booked myself. I didn't realize I had you and our good buddy Jose booked for the same day. So I actually had Jose on earlier with Justin, believe it or not. We
Condor
talked
Man,
about
right?
Condor Man,
Yeah.
the 1991 81 Disney cult classic, and the fun thing I joke around with him and when Mike was here, we joke around a lot of the films we talk about end up being stuff coincidentally that would definitely fit into your category as far as films that didn't quite weren't quite cash cows at the box office, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
They
quite a coincidence.
I think we chose that. I mean, the inception of it, Brad and I had done a podcast years ago, where we compared movies, movie match, but COVID, because Brad and I have known each other for a while,
Mm,
a COVID conversation around Ghostbusters 2 kicked off the entire, hey, do you want to, while we're locked up in our houses, do you want to just get
mm,
together and podcast again? And to be quite honest, I didn't think it would run past, I guess, COVID.
mm,
But to Brad's point, it's run much longer because as we get into different genres and we did an entire year of just movies that I got to pick that I thought Brad would just absolutely hate. We did an offshoot called Breaking Brad, and
yeah.
there was a lot of collateral damage because by the time we got to the end of the year, we were all broken that participated in that.
That could have something while you guys were taking a break this year. You're gonna give
Yeah,
yourself a little breathing room.
we couldn't do that 2 years in a row, but it
no,
was
we could not.
fun.
Come on,
But
I'm
yeah,
sure there's another Justin to Kelly movie just waiting for you guys to sit through.
I can't.
We've
It's
had we've
like,
had plenty of recommendations on Breaking
yeah,
Bad season two.
yeah.
Oh, listen, I'm sure I could come up with quite a few, but I won't torture you that. I won't torture you guys that much. I do enjoy hearing the stories of your torture, not because I'm a malicious person, but just because I like to hear so I know what to avoid. I want to know what kind of damage I'm really getting involved if I were to invest in one of these movies. So I kind of like I live vicariously through your torture, essentially.
Yeah,
So
we actually, I will say this, there were films that I don't think I would have ever watched
mhm.
without going through this podcast and specifically that Breaking Brad segment. So we had a long list of films that were like, hey, Brad hates this genre or hates this director or actor, and what's
Yeah.
going to be the breaking point for it? And surprisingly, From Justin to Kelly was not the worst movie we saw. So
Yeah.
Oh, it was one of the better films that we saw.
yeah, it was crazy.
No, I heard you had the pleasure of watching BC Butcher. You know, that one sounded painful for me, and I'm a trauma person. You know, so for me, like, mind you, it wasn't a trauma directed. It was a Trauma pickup. But
Yeah.
I heard that one and I was like, that might be even too tough for me to get through. And I sit through like Cannibal the Musical and Terror Firmer and Poltergeist, and I was like, oh man,
That
that one sounds rough even for me, you know?
Kato Kalin made an appearance in that film, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you're really going for those A-list actors apparently.
it was an amazing film. I don't know how to do it.
In
It
hindsight, it again wasn't that bad.
wasn't the worst one we saw.
But you know, yeah, but you guys did find a couple fun ones. Like what was the turkey one you guys talked about that you guys the
Thanks,
first
Oh,
one
thanks
thanks
you
for
killing.
killing. Yeah.
were that you actually ended up enjoying it. So, you know, sometimes you might go in with apprehension or terror and then end up finding yourself with a new personal favorite or a new cult classic. So you never know quite what you're going to get.
Exactly.
So, well, that's awesome, guys. I guess I'll go right into what we've been watching. Do either one of you guys want to talk first? What you've been watching this week?
I'll
Oh,
defer to Brad first.
okay, because I have a pretty I was able to get in a lot of stuff this week for some strange reason. So a
I'm
lot of it
jealous.
is rewatch.
Yeah.
Well, first I just want to say I watched the whole X-Men 97 series. I thought that 10 episode run was amazing.
Mhm.
Where they can go next season is pretty exciting. I think they'll introduce one of the bigger bads in the X-Men canon.
Mhm.
I won't say too much because I think there's a lot of spoiler stuff, but X-Men 97 had no business being as good as it was,
Mhm.
and it was quite amazing. For anyone who has nostalgia for that 92 series, 97 was perfect. It was
Awesome.
everything I could have wanted.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm one of those people, and I always used to bust one of my best friend's chops. I I came to X-Men, believe it or not, even though I'm a comic book nerd, primarily a Marvel nerd. I came to love the X-Men over time to the movies. I always used to bust my one friend's chops because we used to have like this thing where we used to make fun of each other. It'd be like, "Oh, you don't like the X-Men? The lazy writer that they were born with an excuse, you know?" And he used to be, "Oh, well, you like Spider-Man, the guy that was bitten by a radioactive spider, so we, take jabs at each other."
Yep.
But as time went on, a couple of those X-Men films, like X-Men First Class, is fantastic. The last Wolverine movie, hey, listen,
Logan, man,
it,
Logan is
it
yeah.
was I wouldn't say perfect, but it was near perfect. The only issue I had with be like that whole clone aspect of it. Listen, that's nitpicking. The rest of the movie was fantastic, and there's some actually really good X-Men films. So um, overall, over time, I've learned to really love that. So yeah, I've learned to love the X-Men.
All right, so I'll go through these quickly. So
I'm
the
sorry.
first one,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just what we all do sometimes. I was laying in bed and I was scrolling through Netflix and I was like, what do I want to watch?
Yeah.
And I came upon rewatching the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh, no.
Um,
Good
the
movie.
Tyler Nelson, what's the other guy's name? Michael Schwartz, I believe, is the
Uh-huh.
co-directors. Um, I for as messed up as he is, Shia LaBeouf, I think, is a pretty fantastic actor. This is one of his better performances.
Hmm.
Does have a character with Down syndrome. I think
Hmm.
it's a super lovable character. Where
Hmm.
it goes is pretty fantastic. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts makes an appearance in the third
Yeah,
act.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
it's a really good feel good movie. And I think even Dakota Johnson isn't terrible in it. So I really enjoyed that rewatch. I had
Nice.
seen it when it first came out because I had heard the buzz out of South by and checked it out as soon as I could, and then rewatched it. And yeah, it's still as good as I remember. And then I went and I rewatched the Iron Claw because I got the Blu-ray and I hadn't watched it yet.
Hmm.
And I think I don't want the Iron Claw to get forgotten from
Hmm.
2023. Of course, we have our Oppenheimers and we have our Barbies being the big films from 2023. I mean, I think some of the performances, Zach Efron being one of them, one of the best performances I've seen. Holt McCallany, I think is his last name. The father is kind of a bastard and you hate him immediately. It's a tragic story for people who haven't seen it. It is not. I had watched The Iron Claw and then I needed something to cleanse the palate, so that's why I went to Peanut Butter Falcon.
Mm,
So that was the order I did that in. But yeah, I love films about wrestling. I grew up in the Attitude Era of wrestling, and
mm,
I still have a little bit of nostalgia for that era of wrestling. Now, the Von Erichs were a little bit before my time, but I do
yeah.
have nostalgia for wrestling and when wrestling was like important. Like I remember every Monday night wrestling being important to me.
Hmm.
Um, but sadly it's not anymore. But yeah, loved the Iron Claw. I just I don't want people to forget that movie. I just think it's one of the better films from 2023, and I'm trying to keep it alive. And the last film that well, two more films, real quick. I rewatched the Crow from 1994 because I got the
Okay.
4K.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what came out.
the
It's
the
beautiful.
the Crow still is amazing. Still um breaks my heart to know that Brandon Lee didn't get um kind of get his moments that he deserved. Sure, he had films before that, but The Crow was such a breakout and such a cool movie. And again, a wrestler basically based their whole persona on The Crow, but it it's still fantastic. The remake and the look of the character, I'm not super thrilled about, but every time I hear the internet get all bent out of shape about the way a character looks or who's playing the character, I'm like, well, there was a huge campaign against Michael Keaton being Batman. There was a huge campaign against
Oh, totally.
Heath Ledger being the Joker. So I try to kind of
Yeah.
pump the brakes on a lot of that stuff. Now I get caught up in it too.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm gonna wait and see. I am still excited for that remake. I just want to see it and want to see what they do. Um, I mean, the Crow, like the villain, is crazy. He's like eating or eyeballs, or I mean, there's like all this weird stuff in it. But yeah, it's still fantastic. And then last night I threw on Dune 2 because that just came out as well. And I had to rewatch that because
Mhm.
I left the theater when I saw Dune 2 and thought it might be one of my favorite science fiction films I've ever seen.
Mhm.
There is so much movie in that movie. Like you can tell they spent so much money. There's just so much in that and so
Mhm.
much stuff that's awe-inspiring. Like I left this is going to sound so corny and I'm going to say it and you guys are going to be like, "Okay." I left the theater with like goosebumps after walking out of that. Just it made me feel like I felt when I saw Jurassic Park or so. Like just like a movie
Mhm.
was the movie was such a movie, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. Like
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
it was just fantastic, and I loved every second of it. I mean, I truly think Charlemagne is a star.
Mhm.
It's undeniable how much of an appeal he has. I mean, this is a hard sci-fi film that is almost 3 hours, and it made a ton of money, and they threw him
Yeah.
on the front, him and Saldana. So yeah, I mean, I know I'm going to watch Dune 2 again relatively soon because I love it so much. So yeah, that's my highlights of the week. I think I had a
Very
few
cool.
other things, but that was the
Well,
best.
those are all really good choices. I mean, I would say I agree with your assessment on all those films. I mean, Peanut Butter Falcon, like you said, LaBeouf, he has capability. He's done good stuff. I can't remember the movie. Was it Honey Boy, the where it's like based off of his life? He
I
was
think
really
so.
strong. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what it was called. He was really strong in that. I mean, he's done some shit, but he's done a lot of good things. He's one of those people. He's just got to get his personal life under control, um, and just focus on picking good choices, and he'll continue to do stuff that's strong. Um, the same thing with the wrestling movie. There's some really strong performances in that movie. I don't think everything in that movie works for me, but I think there's a hell of a lot that does. And then Dune, that just it's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to look at. It's got a great cast, some strong performances by everybody, and of course, it's got a great story. Now I'm curious. Did you ever read the books? I've never read the books. It's one of
I
those things I kick myself for, but I
I'm
hear such good things.
I'm currently listening to the books, so I made it
Oh,
through
okay.
the first one. So I am currently listening to them.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'm notoriously like don't read as much as I should. But I do listen to quite a few audiobooks, so that's where I consume a
Nice.
lot of that.
Well, it's tough, man, when you're trying to juggle a million things, and then, between job and then, of course, family, kids, it's podcast, it's tough to manage everything. I have a book list that's worse than my Blu-ray watch list, which I didn't think was possible, but yeah, it's out of control. So, um, so yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, those are all great watches. What about yourself, Troy? What have you been watching this week?
I've been I've been doing a lot of homework for your show and then our show.
Oh, I know. I know.
So,
I really piled it on. I apologize.
no,
This
it was
guy,
it
come
was
on,
it
we're
was
covering one movie, not fucking six.
no, it was good. I mean, I stuck to the live action stuff for Crying Freeman.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
outside of watching this film, I did go back and revisit the two Hong Kong films, which I'm sure we'll talk about,
yeah,
a little bit later. And then we are discussing Sylvester Stallone's Get Carter as part of the May remake. So
yeah.
use that as an opportunity to go back. I think a lot of people forget when they talk about Get Carter, they either talk about Stallone or the
Mm.
original Michael Caine one, but there's an actual another remake that occurred in between.
Oh, okay.
Bernie
Nice.
Casey and Pam Grier called Hitman. So watch that one, kind of just to revisit it in preparation for the show. So it was interesting to go back and in one week we're talking about a film for each show, but I'm
Mm,
watching two films that were basically the same story, uh,
mm.
and and that was fun. It's especially watching them so close together and back to back. It's always fun to see how a director or screenplay or even artist like does the interpretation of the same character, same story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting to see their take on it, their variation. That's
Oh yeah,
awesome. Very good.
incredibly different. But the two I'll talk about just a little bit in detail uh, would probably be my favorite films that I've seen this year. One was in the theater, and the other one actually just came out on Netflix. So
Okay.
Jose and I got to see the fourth installment in the Crime City series, The
Okay.
Roundup Punishment, which
Nice.
stars one Mr. Don Lee. And I don't know, John. Have you seen The Outlaws from 2017 or Roundup in 2022, which was the second one, or even The Roundup No Way Out, which came out last year? Have you seen any of those films?
Sadly, I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm very naive in the ways of Don Lee. That one that you guys talked about,
Champion.
Champion.
yes, I saw that and I love that. And after seeing his performance in that, the emotional, the dramatic elements of it, it's one of those things I was like, okay, I got to check out more of this guy's work. But I haven't really seen a lot of his work. I think that might perhaps be the only thing I've ever seen. So he's
Oh,
on my list.
you have to go back and watch these Crime City films. So
Yeah.
Don Lee is just a force of nature, and
Yeah.
I mean, he is 100% movie star quality.
Mm,
He not only brings this intimidation, but he brings this sort of charm and charisma with him.
mm,
And these films, what's so interesting about it is, he's got four films. They're all, comedy action films, and every film has a different, unique villain that they
mm,
try to do something just a little bit different. Whereas you're not going to find somebody as big, bulky, as strong and punch heavy as Don Lee. So
mm.
you got to find a villain that's going to have their different take. And usually it's what's the most sadistic, menacing, and for each of these films, they do a great job of it. This latest one really, I think, ups the action a little bit and even the comedy.
Oh,
And
nice.
I'm amazed four movies into this how this just does not lose steam, and each
Mm.
one of these feels fresh, original, and funny. But you've got to check out this series. It's absolutely fantastic, and
That's
the
awesome.
latest one's playing in the theater. It's the second highest grossing film I think in Korea right now. It's doing great. Um, I'm sure it'll end up the way these work, like the Roundup No Way Out from last year
Mm.
just came out on Blu-ray and 4K. So
Okay.
if you miss it in the theater, it usually is about a year, and then it's going to get a
Mm,
US distribution. But you can catch the first three. I think The Outlaws, the first one from 2017, at one point was on Amazon Prime. That's a great
oh,
place to start.
okay.
And
Very cool.
they even borrow heavily from that film for a Mission Impossible sequence.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
Very nice.
that's how influential. The other one I want to rep for real quick because we just saw it this weekend. So and it's appropriate because you
Mm,
picked something that was originally a manga that
mm,
through different iterations ended up, becoming a live action film.
mm,
Brad is the manga guy, I think, between us. I always
mm,
dip my toes a little bit into it in anime, but I'm not as versed as he is.
mm,
However, I have my favorites. And one of my all-time favorites has been the City Hunter series. I love
mm,
that show.
mm,
I've never read the original manga,
mm,
but I've loved the cartoon iterations and all the TV shows that they did. I think there was a French live action film that I haven't been able to track down with English subs yet. But
oh, that's awesome.
Netflix just released one about a week ago, City Hunter, coming out in 2024. And
Mm,
I got to tell you, in terms of live action remakes, I always love the City Hunter version from Jackie Chan. I think
mm,
he did a really good job of encompassing the Ryu Seba character,
mm. Very
and
cool.
it for a Jackie Chan film, it
Mm,
did its best to incorporate a lot of the city hunterisms. But this new
mm,
film that they did, and especially I'm going to butcher his name, but Ryohei Suzuki, who plays Ryu Seba in
mm,
this live action film is basically the anime come to life. The action is fantastic. The
mm,
they they do a very inventive way of bringing some of the cartoonish things into a more practical real life scenario. Um,
mm,
and it's handled so well. The villains are fantastic, but this movie it's just so much fun to watch. It's one of the few films that I was laughing out loud, and the action sequences alone are just top notch. I mean, it's this stuff that you look at this and you go, okay, I wish all action sequences could be filmed this way. Especially this big showdown in this warehouse with Ryu versus pretty much 50 like soldiers. It's so goofy, it's hilarious, but you're also looking at that and going, that's some of the coolest stuff you've seen in a long time.
oh,
So
wow.
if you can think of like 80s, 90s gun fu uh,
Mm,
that they would have done in Hong Kong,
like
um,
hard boiled and stuff like that.
yeah,
Better tomorrow.
they take that and really add an anime style to it that makes
Mm,
this new City Hunter just fantastic. So I highly recommend checking out that Netflix version. That film,
oh, that's awesome.
I hope it does
Very cool.
well because I would love to see like 3 or 4 more of those.
Very cool. Very sweet. We'll have to look out for that. All right. I guess I'll go into what I watched. Now, like yourself, I only have one thing. I'm shameful to say that, but I was so busy preparing for this and then for Condor, man. I was just like I didn't have a lot of time. I saw a documentary. It's called Mining the Gap. It came out in 2018. Just recently got a Criterion release, and it's actually pretty cool. It's about these kids growing up in Rockford, Illinois. These three characters, Zach, Kier, and Bing Liu. And they all come from dysfunctional families and screwed up backgrounds and dysfunction. And it's all about them kind of trying to kind of get their shit together and deal with their dysfunction and their past. One of the main characters finds out his girlfriend's pregnant. So he's dealing with that. He's also dealing with alcohol abuse. At some point, he becomes physically abusive. Um, the other kid goes a different route and tries to educate himself and kind of tries to better himself. And then you have the filmmaker who directed it. He actually is dealing with trauma because his mom's boyfriend abused him as a kid. So it's all these three kids basically kind of like trying to get their act together, trying to deal with the trauma they've been through, um, and then just try to kind of move forward in a positive direction in their life. And it was really impressive. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, the mid '90s. That what's
Yeah,
his name
Jonah Hill.
directed? Yeah, Jonah
Jonah Hill.
Hill. It's
Mhm.
kind of like that, a little more serious, um, but it had a good message, and really enjoyed it. So I saw that. I actually did. I can talk about one other thing I watched last night. I caught the first episode, so I can't say too much about it, but it was a Stephen King adaptation of his book Mr. Mercedes, and it stars
Oh,
Brendan Gleeson.
yeah.
And I haven't caught the first episode, so I was impressed with the first episode. There's apparently 3 seasons, and it's basically he's a retired cop. He's like become the angry, get off my lawn, Clint Eastwood kind of cop. Um, but he's like that cop that always has that one case that got away from him. And in this particular case, it's one about a serial killer that got away. So I think throughout this first episode, he's kind of like getting lured back into it. Like this serial killer sends him a message, kind of teasing him on through an email. So anything with Brendan Gleeson, he's just one of those actors, man. He just chews the scenery. It doesn't matter what you give him. I feel like he can just bring that gravitas. So with one episode, it's not a lot to judge, but definitely really solid so far. So
That
those are
book
like
is really
basic.
good. I've read the
Yeah,
book.
no,
It's fantastic.
yeah, no, he's just one of those guys. So those are just the two things, and then everything else was either in preparation for this or in preparation for my other episode. Just give me 1 second here, guys. Yeah, so from there, I guess I'll talk a little bit about the manga, just real quickly. It was originally published in 9 volumes from 1986 to 88. Um, Basically, the story is similar to the movie. A Japanese artist is abducted by the 108 Dragons, a Chinese crime syndicate, and forced to serve them as a master assassin. His code name is Crying Freeman. The premise being that every time he kills someone, there's tears that come down his eyes and sadness. It was written by a guy, and I'm going to butcher names as badly as you do, Troy. I know that's your trademark, but I might be
Right.
borrowing your trademark tonight a little bit because these are Japanese names, and I'm horrible with pronouncing things. It's the writer is a guy named Kazui Koike, and he's known for Lone Wolf and Cub, Lady Snowblood, and those are the big ones. He actually wrote the script for Lady Snowblood too. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the two movies they did. They're
Yeah,
pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
they're really good.
Yeah, and then it was illustrated by a guy named Royachi. And again, I'm probably horribly pronouncing that. Ikajami, who did Crying Freeman. He did a comic book called Sanctuary, and then one called My the Psychic Girl. And so that was like the manga, and then of course it was adopted into an anime series that was released between 88 and 94. They did 6 like mini movies. They're like just under an hour, and that was released by Toei Animation. So that's like the source material. I've read the first 2 graphic novels, and they're pretty solid. The first one I think I love. I have a lot of love for the art, the story. Um, I think the movie, I will talk about that in a minute. I think I really, really enjoyed it. And now I know you said you've read, did you end up finishing the one I gave you, Troy?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like
Did you enjoy it?
I
Yeah.
did. I'm
Okay.
glad you sent it because watching this film and then the 2 Hong Kong films, I feel like everybody read that manga and took something different away from it. They
Yeah,
concentrated
no,
on
it's
one
solid.
aspect of the manga and leaned into it. And it was cool to read that source material and then see, okay, well, this director is more trying to stay true to the manga, whereas another one maybe gravitated to the origin story, like the dragon from Russia. It seemed like they really liked that section of the manga that had more to do with his origin.
Yeah.
So it was cool. I'm glad I read it. I've never seen the animated series, but now I can say I've read at least the manga and seen all the live actions.
Yeah, I liked it because I feel like it filled in some of the gaps
Yeah,
that the 3 movies didn't quite. Because, like, it's so hard. That was, I think, like a 300-page graphic novel or 200, I forget. So
yeah.
it's hard to translate that into screenplay pages. And how about you, Troy? I know you said you've seen the anime series back in the day. Have you ever read any of the graphic novels?
You mean
Me?
Brad?
I'm Brad. Brad, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My
I
brain's
I
not
saw
working.
I've seen the anime. I've not read the original source material of the manga. Well, past the first
Yeah,
like you have.
yeah,
But I have seen the manga or the anime. It's been a little while, but But yeah, I remember again, like all anime, like the art style is pretty amazing. Do they go? Did the manga go into like the film part of it where he gets the film of the guy being assassinated, and that kind of brings him into the 108s? Okay, all right.
Yeah, manga. They have a scene. Yeah, they go into a part where like where he's originally just an artist and he's at
Mhm.
this exhibit in New York City, and there's some guy being chased through this like art exhibit, and basically he drops this film
Film.
into like this clay like
Oh, so
vase or
okay, yeah,
something,
yeah, okay. So he does that. Okay, and
and
then
he
that's
finds
awesome.
this, develops the film,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
they're like, okay, well we got to get rid of this guy.
Okay.
So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so yeah, I like the first graphic novel a lot. Some of the other ones do get a little bit crazy, but they're worth exploring. I
The
think
anime does get kind of nuts too.
yeah, yeah, and it does, it definitely, like if they wanted to, they probably were smart not to cut some of the things out, because between even the first graphic novel and the anime, like it does get pretty graphic, some of the stuff. Not the violence, but some of like the sex stuff. And I don't care about that, but I think it might have cut into some of their sales as far as making any kind of money goes. Because it does go there. Um, so I guess I'll talk briefly. Like I said, I'm not going to go too crazy with the two Hong Kong movies because I figure our main course is really the Crying Freeman that came out in '96. But I'll talk about the Dragon from Russia. And essentially with that, the main characters in this are called Mei, Yip, and Yao, are both orphans and have been friends since they were kids. But they are torn apart when the leader of the 800 dragons, Kung Fu Cult, abducts Yao and erases his memory. Now, this one was directed by a guy named Clarence Folk. Clarence was, I think, mostly known for Police Story that came out in '85. That's the big one. And then something that came out in 2001 called Martial Angels. Um, those are the ones that stood out for me. Now, he has a bunch of other credits to his name, but I figured those are kind of like the bigger ones that I think people might be familiar, especially Police Story. And then the main actors, I just listed the main two actors. Maggie Chung, who plays May, the love interest. She was in also Police Story. She was in Super Cop
Oh,
and a movie called Hero. And then Samuel, again, probably pronouncing this wrong, Samuel Hugh, who played Yao Lung, our main character, the Crying Freeman. He's been in stuff like Tattoo Dragon, Mad Mission, and Working Class. Again, he has a bunch of other credits, but unfortunately, I wasn't overly familiar, so I didn't want to go into
oh,
listing their.
Aces Go Places. Come on.
That's the Mad Mission. So
Oh,
Aces
yeah.
Go Places
Places
is it's 1 through 4 or 5 of them.
five. Yeah.
They're called
Oh,
Mad
okay.
Mission over here.
Oh, okay. Nice, nice. I know
He,
you were the.
hey,
I knew I could. I know I could count on you, Troy. I know you're the Hong Kong guy here. Like
yeah, Sam is a huge Cantonese pop star. So he is not known for
for the
I mean,
acting.
he's known for his action comedy films, but he started as a Cantonese pop star and transitioned into films.
Oh, okay. I'll
So
tell you what. I that one I loved. I'll talk about it in a second. I'm gonna just finish up a couple. Oh, someone's doing fireworks in my neighborhood. Threw me off there. Uh, we have stunts by a game named Blackie Sholang Ko. He did Armor of God, Better
yep.
Tomorrow, and Royal Warriors. Armor of
Armor
God I
of
saw recently, and I love
yeah,
that
Armor of
movie.
God is one of my favorite. I love
Yeah,
it
that's
so much. The monk fight.
so again, I'm butchering names here, guys. And then our action coordinator was Tak Ayun, and he's known for Bastard Swordsman, Fist of Fury, and Kiss of the Dragon are some of the notable names. Um, Now, did you guys? I know you saw all three. Troy, have you seen any of the other ones besides Crying Freeman, Brad?
It's been a while. I've seen uh the Dragon from Russia.
Yeah, you did.
It's
Okay,
been a while, but I've seen it before.
yeah.
And to
Um,
be honest, I think when I saw it, I didn't realize it was like connected to Crying Freeman, to be honest with you.
I didn't know about the other two movies until I originally brought this up to Troy. And I wasn't sure if you were going to be interested. I brought it up to Troy, the Crying Freeman thing, and I realized he also really enjoyed it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, there's other two movies too." And I'm like, "There's two other movies? What? I didn't even know about it." So I hunted them down, and I really enjoyed what I liked about Dragon from Russia, there's some really great action sequences, some really cool stunts. Um, in particular, I thought there was some really cool scenes where they're training our main guy. It actually reminded me of Remo Williams, some of the training sequences from that. There's a lot of comedy infused in some of the training sequences, and I thought it was really really cool. And I also thought um, some of the acting was actually pretty decent for an action film, because traditionally for me, when I go into an action film, I kind of go into an action film expecting great action, but not really expecting anything from the performances. Like, I go in with low expectations. You know what I mean? That's just always been kind of my personal perspective when it comes to approaching action films. But yeah, I was actually really enjoyed that one a lot. What did you
How
think?
much did Troy pay to bring up Remo Williams?
I know that's a point of contention between you two,
It
and
is.
I will not get in the middle of your your
Hey,
love.
it's okay. It's okay for Brad to be wrong on that one. Remo
But
Williams
I
is
actually
amazing.
listen. I'm not gonna lie. I actually do like Remo Williams.
It's you
But
don't have to apologize for that. Remo Williams is an amazing film.
the book series are pretty good too. I'll tell you what.
I
There's a shit ton
yeah.
of books, and they're also a lot of fun too. What were your thoughts on the Dragon from Russia, Troy?
It's a lot of fun. And it's one of those films. I think the reason why the acting is so good. I mean,
Yeah,
Maggie Cheung just elevates anything. I mean, she's
yeah,
an amazing actress, but Sam Hui is like he's a performer first and an action
mm,
star second. So
mm,
he's always going to give a good performance, and I
yeah,
think he does really good with the stunt work that he's given, and especially some
mm,
of the fight choreography. So that is him doing a lot of it, but it's also the action team that's doing some of the more complicated stunt work. But
mm,
he's fantastic, and like you said, I always remember Dragon from Russia because it's very hard to find movies where they have really good nunchuk scenes or
mm,
choreography. And this
mm.
one has a fantastic training montage with that,
Oh, awesome.
but there's a great fight sequence with nunchucks as well in this as well
Mm,
in the film as well. And um, that's what I remember most about this film. But
mm.
it is a true 80s 90s, like it's pretty zany.
Yeah,
So
no, it's pretty wacky.
there is some under cranking going on, I think, in some of the sequences to kind of speed up the fight
Mm.
choreography in and of itself. It has a little bit of that wuxia feel to it where people are flying around.
Mm,
But it works in the context of this. And like I said a little bit ago, I feel like this film, when they were reading the source material, they were way more interested in the origin stories for the Freeman.
yeah,
And that's where a big chunk of the film takes place. And then you'll
yeah.
see elements of the graphic novel come through. But this really is about the origin of the Freeman. They concentrate on that probably more than anything out of the source material.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. Because like it threw me off when I heard, like, when you originally told me the title, I'm like, Dragon from Russia? Hold on, he's in Russia? What's going
Yeah.
like originally, like, it threw me off for sure. So I guess from there I'll go into, again, briefly, Killer's Romance. And again, a little bit of a different twist. A triad assassin is sent to kill a female witness to murder her, only to fall in love with her instead. So I guess in this one, the premise is that his dad was working for the triad. I think he got killed, and he's like seeking revenge. So it's like a little bit of a different twist. They ignore the whole artist thing. That's not even part of it. It was directed by Philip Co. Hand, I think. Um, and he did stuff like Hard to Kill, Fatal Chase, and Die to Win. We have Simon Yan, who played Jeffrey Yo, our main character. You may know him from Fatal Termination,
Oh,
Tiger Cage, or Bullet in the Head. And then
Fatal Termination. Just
Amazing.
that's a
just an
crazy movie. I
amazing
saw that
movie.
one recently. Yeah, no, that's a crazy one. And then we have Joey Wang, who plays Paula Emu, the love interest. And she's been in stuff like Chinese Ghost Story, Point of No Return, and City Hunter.
Yes.
So those are our main characters. You have Yosushiro Shikamura, who's our stunt coordinator. He's done stuff like Boxer's Omen, the Cypress Tigers, and Phantom War. And then the other stunt coordinator is Wa Po, also Phantom War, Cypress Tigers, and A Killer's Romance. So that's kind of like our main cast and crew on that one. Just bear with me for 1 second, guys. Um, Now I know you saw that one, Killer's Romance. What were your thoughts in comparison to the other two, Troy?
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these films, but again,
Yeah.
it's different. So whereas Dragon from Russia really concentrates on, the swordplay, the knives, that type of action choreography, and kicking each other in the face.
Hmm.
Romance probably has more DNA that comes from like the heroic bloodshed films.
Hmm.
So, there is some good choreography in here, but it
Hmm.
is really about the gun fu. And with
Yeah.
Simon Yam, you are getting something that is very similar to, pick a heroic bloodshed film. That's the theme in this one.
Hmm.
The violence is a little bit more gratuitous,
Hmm.
and it's still really good. Whereas Dragon from Russia has a lot of comedic elements into it. This has zero comedy.
Yeah.
It's
No,
part of the
definitely bad.
melodrama, and like I said, it's all about this individual getting revenge, falling in love, and then
Hmm.
again concentrating on another aspect of the manga where it's really focused on the revenge and the relationship portion,
Hmm.
and it scraps the whole origin story and just says, well, this kid grew up in the family and learned how to shoot people really well and punch people in the face.
Hmm.
That's, I mean, they kind of gloss over that, but this one is more about the revenge part,
Yeah.
but it's still good,
Well,
really good.
yeah, I enjoyed this one too. All three of them really, you can't go wrong. And Brad, did you get a chance to see Killer's Romance
Yeah,
by
I've
any
seen
chance?
Killer's Romance. I like Killer's Romance way more than Dragons from Russia. I love
Yeah.
I like Killer's Romance a lot.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool. Sweet. Well, I'm glad you guys. I know I would have. By the way, I would have. I'm glad you have the manga. I would have sent you a copy of the manga too, but I wasn't sure if initially if you were going to be interested. Um, and I'm glad that you had seen the other two because I didn't want to, like I said, I don't want to go crazy as far as the details about these other two films. But I wanted to like touch bases on them because I feel like to talk about the movie we're going to talk about, the main course, Crying Freeman, it's important to talk about these ones a little bit. And I'm just excited that you guys both have seen the other two. Um, like I said, I got to thank Troy for letting me know about these other two because I didn't know they existed. So I'm super excited to have seen them. So I guess from there, I guess I'll go right into the actual movie we're here to talk about tonight, which is Crying Freeman, which came out in '96. So this film was an international co-production between France, Canada, and Japan, and it was filmed in British Columbia in '94. Um, so finding out the budget on this was really weird because initially when I went on IMDb.com, it said 30 million, but then when I did some homework and I Googled online, I found out it was actually only made for 15 million, and then they cut the budget back to 9 million.
9 million. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
found.
So it's crazy. I feel like they made that $9 million work. Um, and again, brief synopsis. I'm gonna leave the story for you, but basically, the main story. But a woman sees an assassin outside of San Francisco killing yakuza men, and later in Vancouver, she's been told that he leaves no witnesses, and she will be his next victim. And that's like the general tagline. It's directed by Christopher Gans. Christopher Gans started out his career making like short films. In '93, he did an anthology film, which I've never seen, called Necromonicon, Book of the Dead. He did one of the segments in this. Apparently, Brian Usna, the director, he's done stuff like Society and a bunch of other horror films.
Ooh,
He has a segment in the film. Um, then he would proceed to go on to this, Crying Freeman. One of my all-time favorites, Brotherhood of the Wolf, in 2001. Love that movie. We'd also
agree.
get our man Mark DeCassos back in action. Um, Silent Hill in 2006. Now, I just sat through that a couple days ago, and I didn't get a chance to take some notes on it. Now, I will say what my fiance's thoughts were. She tells me because she's a big fan of the video game franchise. I've never played the video game franchise. Her words to me were, "If you can separate it from the video game, it's not bad." But because she has such love for the video game, it's kind of hard to, you know what I mean, to kind of look at it on
I
its
love
own.
that film.
I like it a
I think
lot.
it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, I mean, she's like, I try to separate. She tells me she tries to separate it from.
Yeah.
I think there's some good stuff in there. I'm not gonna lie, it's not Brotherhood or Crying Freeman, but there's some effective stuff in there. Some of those jump scares really get you, man. I hate to praise fall victim to the jump scares, but they have some really good ones in there.
Oh yeah.
And then he did a movie in '06 called no, not in '06, in 2014 he did his own version of Beauty and the Beast. And then of course this year he's got a new Silent Hill movie coming out. He's got a new Silent Hill movie coming out, and he's got a movie based off another video game franchise, the Fatal Frame video game series. It's going to be called Project Zero. Now, I've never played any of the Fatal Frame games, so I don't know anything about them. But Christopher Gans is one of those guys. Like I said, he impressed me with Crying Freeman initially, and then after that, Brotherhood of the Wolf, he had my money, And from
Yep.
there, he's one of those guys. I'll pretty much watch anything he does. I mean, I still have memories of my first introduction to manga was Crying Freeman, going into the comic book shop, seeing volume one, and like looking through it, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This guy's like slitting throats. I'm seeing like, the kind of stuff you don't see in Spider-Man, like this sex, all this crazy sex stuff, all this violence, but there's actually a story to all of it. And then a couple of years later, I remember when the Crying Freeman movie came out, but you couldn't find it anywhere. It was one of those things that it didn't play in any theaters, maybe like in New York and LA. I remember going to Brooklyn because my buddy was stationed in Brooklyn in the Army. And there's a place in Brooklyn on Fulton Street where you can go, and that's where you can get all your bootlegs. Back in the day when you couldn't find this stuff,
Yeah.
you couldn't go on the internet and Google, some torrent site and find, some film that didn't get a release, but you could go to this place. And I remember getting my VHS copy of Crying Freeman and watching it and just being, wow, just being blown
I
away
don't
by it.
know if it has an official US release. I don't think it does.
I know it came out on DVD a while back, but I don't know if that was a Region B DVD kind of thing.
I think there's Canadian DVD releases. I've bought this a couple of times. Like the Blu-ray I have is from Germany.
That's what I have. Is it like a steelbook?
Yes.
I've
Yeah,
got I think I've got the French one,
Okay.
oh, okay.
the all
And
regions one.
there's
Oh,
a really nice DVD collector set that I picked up from Canada distribution, but I don't know if this has ever been. I could be wrong, but this is one of those that for whatever reason it's alluded to have an official like glossy clean US release.
and it's a shame because it definitely should, especially because manga and anime has become so popular over the years. Like when I first started collecting manga, well, manga was accessible, but like anime, forget about it, dude. Like you couldn't afford. I remember they were showing. You'd go to like Suncoast and you'd get like a half an hour of like, I don't know, like I like this series called Ranma One Half, and they'd charge you $30
Hmm.
Yeah.
for a half an hour or an hour. So that way you had to resort to the bootleggers and stuff like that. But nowadays, like the generation like now, and even the last 15, 20 years, it's so accessible. Like you can even go on Tubi and there's stuff on there, like anime and stuff like that. Freebie, Amazon Prime has it, Netflix has it.
Well,
These
they have
kids,
their own
man,
streaming service. Crunchyroll is dedicated
Yeah.
to
yeah,
that.
my girl, she has a Crunchyroll and she loves it. So yeah, so that's a little bit about his resume. Of course, now this is where it gets interesting. As far as the writing aspect, it was written by 6 people. Now, technically, two of them are the artist and the writer of the manga, Kazui Koike and Ryuichi Ikegami. They get writing credits, and then you have Roger Avery, believe it or not, the guy that worked with Tarantino. He has an uncredited role as a writer. I guess he did some punch-up work on it. Christopher Gans, the director, has a credit as a writer, and a person named Theory Casals. And again, I'm probably horribly butchering your name there, so I apologize. If you're listening, Theory Casals, I apologize. And yeah, so I mean, you have a pretty decent group of people working on it. And then with our cinema photography, you have a guy named Thomas Burston. Thomas, people might know him from stuff like Toy Soldiers back in '91, with that movie with Sean Astin.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that. Yeah.
I love that movie. Stupid movie, but I love it. Snowpiercers, the not the movie, but the show they made. He did
The
8
TV show.
episodes of that. Yeah, and then the live action Cowboy Bebop. He did 6 episodes of that. So um, and then with our music department, we have a gentleman named Patrick O'Hearn. He worked on stuff as like a movie called Fatherhood in '93. As Good as Dead in 95. Believe it or not, the TV show Falcon Crest that ran between 89 and 90. So he has a bit of a career. Um, and then when we get to our editing department, we have two gentlemen. We have a guy named Christopher Roth. Uh, People might know him from Hatchet. He did in the 90s. Remember the horror movies, The Dentist and The Dentist
Oh
2? He did
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Mm.
You gotta love that cheese.
Oh, and Troy's favorite movie, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I believe he's the editor on.
Movie's
Oh shit! I didn't
terrifying.
even catch that. I don't know how I missed that. Crap.
Terrifying.
Return of the Living Dead 3, and Demon Wind. So he was one of the editors. And then we have another guy named David Wu. Now, David Wu, he has a reason to add that Wu to his last name because he did Hard Boiled. He worked on Hard Boiled, he worked in the Bullet in the Head, and he worked on The Better Tomorrow. So, he's the man right there. Um, and then finally, I will touch on our stunt department. Now, I didn't get into everybody because you got fucking 54 people working on the stunt department in this film, man. There's a lot of fucking people working on this damn stunt department. I'm gonna touch basis on our man, the stunt coordinator, Scott J. Attia. He's been on stuff like Jake Speed that came out in '86, Rage to Kill that came out in '87. He was in that John Woo movie Paycheck in '03. He did that, Watchmen in '09, stuff like that, So that's our main crew. I guess
Well,
from
real
oh, I'm
quick,
sorry.
so I wanted to share. I don't know how much you guys, when a movie's over, you pay attention to the credits. I'm always curious. Is there a credit I haven't seen before?
Mhm.
There is one on this. If you pay attention, they have a credit on there for Leaves Wranglers. That's an actual credit, and it was Emmanuel Stevens Etier and Gillies James E.
You
So
say leaves?
leaves as in
Like,
tree leaves, because there's a lot of leaves in this film. Apparently two people got a credit at the end of this film for being leaves wranglers.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I've
That
never seen that before. I was like, wow, that's impressive.
I will sit through especially if it's got a good soundtrack, or like if
Yeah,
it's got a banging soundtrack or a score, I will sit through credits. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to that. Otherwise, when I used to work in a movie theater years ago, that's how I used to get into like a lot of bands. I'd sit there because I'd be cleaning the movie theater after a movie got out, and as you're cleaning the theater, you hear soundtrack and be like, "Oh, what band is that?" The next thing you know,
right.
you're over across the street, buying the soundtrack. But I didn't look at the credits. That's so ridiculous. I can't believe they have a Leaves Wrangler.
I was trying to find the stunt coordinator, and right before you get to stunt coordinator, I'm like, what's a leaves wrangler?
Yeah, that's
So,
absolutely ridiculous. I guess at this point, I will turn things over to you, Troy, if you want to talk about our main players.
sure. I mean,
There's not a lot. I mean, it's really,
yeah, there's some names that'll be familiar. There's some interesting dubbing going on in this film too. So you don't hear
yeah,
his original voice, but our hero is Mark Dacascos.
yeah,
So when you talk about Mark Dacascos, I think the general population, not the movie going population, might know him from Iron Chef,
yeah.
the American version. But when you talk about modern action films, I think you've got a trinity of Mark Dacascos films. You've already mentioned one of them, Brotherhood and the Wolf. You've got or Le Pacte de Loup, I think was the original title.
Mhm,
the
Um,
French title?
yeah, the French title. You've got Crying Freeman, this one, and then one
mhm.
that we reviewed as well, which I think is one of the best modern action films, is Drive.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely fantastic. Everybody's got to see that one. Uh,
Troy, you're missing one. You're missing Cradle to the Grave.
Cradle to the Grave. Yeah,
Is that the one with the rapper in it?
That's DMX, sir, not just the
DMX.
rapper.
Yeah,
That's DMX.
that one's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
look, he's got a fun filmography. The bass is a lot of fun. I just think if you're gonna watch a Mark Dacascos film, it is gonna be Crying Freeman, Brotherhood of the Wolf, or Drive. I mean,
Mm.
those are the top three in his resume. Um, Playing Emu O'Hara is Julie Condra. So interesting thing about this film, and I'm curious when we share our thoughts on the film. I'm really curious what you think about their chemistry together. Apparently, it was so good that these two ended up getting married in '98, and they've been together ever since.
Have you
Oh,
seen Mark Dacascos' ass? I would marry that in a second, Troy.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think they have 3 kids, but yeah, they've been together ever since.
Wow, that's awesome.
Checky Cario plays
Mm,
Detective Nita. Now,
mm,
what's interesting is you'll see his face and you go, well, that
Checky
voice,
Cario, yeah.
that voice doesn't match up. Well, that's because his voice was dubbed over by Ron Perlman.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Oh,
that's Ron Perlman's voice you'll hear. Byron Mann
okay.
is Ko.
Mm,
Messiah Kato as Ryuji the Blade Hanada. So he's one of our
mm,
big bad guys. His wife Kimi Hanada is played by Yoko Shimada. And then
mm,
2 other names just want to throw out there because they've got brief appearances. They're in it like 5-10 minutes and they're gone.
mm,
Ray Don Chong plays Detective Forge. So it's a Vancouver detective that ends up being partnered with Detective Nita.
mm.
And for just I mean, he gives a brief monologue and then he's out of the film. But we get Mako Ishido Shimazaki. So he's the leader of the Yakuza Society until he is dispatched by the Freeman. So those are your main players in front of
Yeah,
the camera that you'll probably recognize. And again, this is all about Mark Dacascos. So to Brad's point,
yeah.
you see a lot, and I mean a lot of Mark Dacascos in this film, which is not a bad thing.
And he was even in, wasn't he in this, what, four of them at this point? Wasn't he in John Wick 3 or was it 4? I think he played like the lead bad
He
guy, I
was in
think.
Yeah,
John
is
Wick
it 3?
3. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, 3. Okay, it's been a while. I haven't seen the fourth one. I thought that was it. And then I've avoided it because we were talking about, I know you were talking about the Crow earlier, Brad, but he was in that, remember that
Did the TV
Stairway to Heaven?
series. Was
I still
wasn't it
haven't
a
seen.
TV series or something
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
was? Yeah.
So it's funny because, when Mike was still on the show, one of the jokes we made off camera was the fact that like people forget that like with the rage of remaking the Eric Draven character, they forgot that the Eric Draven character was already remade. It was only on for like 20 episodes. Believe it or not, it didn't get canceled because of low ratings. It actually did well, surprisingly, because I was looking online. I was curious. It wasn't low ratings. It actually did halfway decent. I just never got around to watching it. But yeah, people forget about that one too. And I was in shock that because I had forgotten about it too. It's one of those things that he kind of like was in for a minute and then he was out.
Yeah,
So yeah,
he shows up. Well, he showed up in John Wick, but he's done a couple of like direct streaming stuff.
yeah,
And he's always good. I mean, even he's getting a little bit older, but you wouldn't know it because even if you watch something like John Wick 3, I mean, the guy moves better than most 20-year-old martial artists. I mean, he's always had a grace about him. And if you follow him on social media, I mean, he's running up, mountains in Hawaii just to get his day going. I mean, the guy is
yeah,
super fit
Yeah,
still.
why not?
yeah.
He so he was in Knights of the Zodiac, which
Oh,
is
okay.
based on it, and that movie is terrible. I wanted to love it, but it's terrible. He's good in it, but it's terrible. It's a terrible movie.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, you gotta pay the bills every once in a while.
Oh,
Sometimes it's taking
Oh yeah.
taking a paycheck hit. I mean, look at like what's his name? What is it? Michael Jai White, who did, was in the original Spawn. You love the guy, but for every Black Dynamite, there's like 6 or 7 like really not the good direct to video, but like the stuff that it's like, come on, man, you're killing me here. Why are you making this? So
Uh,
sometimes you just gotta take that money. I still haven't seen the Iron Chef. I'm curious about that. I'm not really normally into cooking shows, but just to see Dicasso's get his due, I might actually
he's
check
fun.
out.
I
yeah,
mean,
he's fun in it. Has anyone
Yeah.
seen that Woo Assassins?
I
No, I
did.
haven't.
The show, it's
Yeah.
okay. And I mean,
Yeah.
he's barely in it. He
Yeah.
is
Oh, okay.
Don't
barely.
watch it for
Yeah.
Troy's being nice. It's not a good show.
It
Oh,
is.
it's not.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
the problem with a lot of these Netflix series, and that's a great example. It's a
Yeah.
3-episode show at best that was dragged out to like 6 or 7.
Mm.
That latest
Mm.
Michelle Yeoh one, the brothers, whatever, watch that one too. And that was a bit insufferable. But again, it's
Yeah.
you got maybe 3 hours of content that's stretched out over into 6 or 7. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think Woo Assassins is 10, I believe.
Was it? Yeah,
It's
I
even worse.
finished it and well, they had a follow-up movie too, didn't they?
Oh, okay. Maybe you're right.
Oh.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I always respect the shows that just they have an idea of what they're doing. They get in, they get out, they tell their story and call it a day.
Yeah.
Like I always think about like for me, like I was late to the game to watching like Breaking. I'm gonna say
Bad.
Breaking Brad by
Make
accident.
it, yeah.
I almost caught
I
myself.
know. I'm more. Our show is more famous than that TV
I
show.
know,
I get it.
seriously. That's what I've watched your show so much that I was almost catching myself saying Breaking Brad instead of Breaking Bad. But that's a perfect example. When they wrote that, apparently they wrote all 5 seasons. They knew they were going to get out of the fifth season. They never jumped the shark, you know. So I gotta have respect for people that just know when to get in. They know when to get out, tell their story. There's no padding. It's just
Yeah.
very concise storytelling, and it's good stuff. So, anyway, I'm going off topic here. So I guess at this point, Brad, I'll turn things over to you if you want to do like talk a little bit about the story.
Sure. So you kind of hinted at the story, but
Yeah, I just need to.
Yo, basically a skilled assassin for a Chinese crime syndicate, this time known as the Sons of the Dragon, not the 800, not the 108, the Sons of the Dragon. Basically is transformed to a killer through some acupuncture, I guess is what we basically say it. And he basically every time he kills someone, he sheds a tear. Basically, it's for his internal struggle and his willingness to retain his humanity, if you will.
Mm,
Yo is we talked about it earlier. What this is a murder by a painter named Emu. Um, Not she does a murder, but she there's a murder, and then he is basically called to kill Emu O'Hara, um, and he spares his life. They have a relationship. They get intimate, very intimate, and we see a lot of Mark Dacascos. And then the last little bit of the film is Yo is trying to seek control of himself and to break away from the syndicate, protect Emu, and confronts endless amount of bad guys with Uzis, and there are bullets sprayed everywhere. And yeah, no bullet spared in this film.
yeah. No, there's definitely that 9 million definitely went to the bullets. You know,
Yep,
I think it was that
a
and
lot of
the ass pushing.
squibs, a lot of squibs.
A lot of
Very cool.
explosions. It's this is
You
this
know?
is pretty explosion heavy too.
Yeah, no, I think of the three, they all have their strengths. Uh, I still say I think this one is probably still my favorite personally, even though I like Dragon from Russia a lot, and I do like Killer's Romance. It's kind of like I'm torn, you know. It's like pick your favorite child, you know, kind of thing. But I think this one for me still works the most. Although drag after seeing Dragon from Russia, that's a close second for me.
Would you
So,
say this one is the closest to the because the thing that jumped out to me was when you read the manga and then watch
yeah,
the three films, I feel like this one was the closest to the
yeah.
manga.
Yeah, I definitely think this one. I mean, obviously, like I said, I think the manga is probably like 200 or 300 pages. I want to say so
Yeah,
they had to punctuate certain things, but I think they came as close as possible to the manga. I think with this one, and I guess for me that was part of the charm. The other two, like I said, are very serviceable and they're very enjoyable in their own right. But this one, I think it came closest to hitting the nail on the head
right.
as far as the films go. So I guess I'll just go into what did you guys think of this one? What were your thoughts on the movie? Is there anything in particular that stood out to you that you loved, or things that you didn't like, or there were the moments that you're like, what the, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I was thinking about this. I was gonna get your guys' opinion on it too. So, you know, it's 2024, and how
yeah,
many assassins fall in love with their target movies have we seen, or that trope, right?
yeah,
So I'm thinking about this, and I have a soft spot for this one because like you, I'd heard about this film and everybody,
mm,
was talking about it from an action perspective. Had to get it on bootleg first before getting like a proper copy.
that
And
was me.
yeah, I fell in love with it just because I'm a huge Mark Dacascos fan too. But when you get this formula, like an assassin falls in love and then they go, well, I'm going to protect this person instead. I think that formula only works if you get three things right. And
Yeah,
I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it as well. So for
mm,
me, the relationship between the assassin and the love interest has to be believable. and there's got
Mm-hmm.
to be real chemistry there.
Mm-hmm.
That's like crucial. Um, the second thing is the action needs to be good and memorable. And
Mm-hmm.
the third is you need a heavy or a villain that's memorable as well. So if you take a movie like The Professional, it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. So he doesn't have
Yeah.
a love relationship with Matilda, but he decides that he's going to protect her.
Mhm.
And then you go, okay, well, The Professional is really no different than the Crying Freeman story to a certain degree. It
Mm-hmm.
it has these three elements of this really interesting relationship. The action's pretty stellar, and everybody
Yeah.
remembers Gary Oldman from that film. And I think The Professional is kind of like one of the big top like
Oh
five
yeah. Well,
of this,
definitely. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, this genre. So I, I look at Crying Freeman and I go, okay, it checks the boxes in all three, and I think it does really well,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it an accessible film. So somebody's going to watch this and go, I think I've seen it before. Well, why would you watch this story again? Well, it's because I think of those three elements. They knock it out of the ballpark in terms of the chemistry. The
Mm-hmm.
action's really good in this film,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I like the villains. The villains go range from just yeah, I mean, you've got a Yakuza right hand man who just won't die in the beginning,
Yeah.
and he's he's really menacing. But then you have these two other side villains who are playing chess with everybody, and manipulating and using everybody. So I think it's a very interesting combination. But I don't know. Those are the three things I look for in this genre. I don't know what you guys are looking for in this kind of film.
I mean, honestly, like after reading, like I said, I come from, and I know people say you should never do this, but having read the manga first, I was so excited to finally get my hands on the VHS bootleg, and I was just looking for them to just try to hit some of the key elements, but not expecting them to. So for me, when they hit most of the core elements, I was satisfied because, like, even though it's cheesy, like when you read the manga and you're like, okay, this is genuinely some dude that just wants to be an artist. His career's on the upswing. Things are going good with his life. And the next thing you know, he's caught up in all this craziness. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you know is he meets this girl that he's supposed to kill, but he does fall in love with her. You know what I mean? And it's like, so you have those core elements of like what make good characters that you want to root for, but then you have, like you said, you have all these fucked up characters. Like he's basically beaten and tortured and trained. You know what I mean? You got this female villain who's mob man's boss, who's, after her husband dies, the day of her funeral, she's sleeping with the corrupt cop to get the corrupt cop to work for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's just like all these crazy elements that tie into a really good story. But then on top of
The
that,
creepy old lady with the long nails and
yeah,
acupuncture skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
you got all the fun, like I love those what the fuck movies. You got that element. You got the cool characters that I want to root for. And then on top of that, you got all these amazing explosions. You got amazing martial arts. You got some really just kick-ass action scenes. And you did all this on a $9 million budget. You know what I mean? And for me, like I said, if you want to nitpick, you can nitpick anything, but this is a movie that, like, overall, it's just an enjoyable, good time. You crack open a beer. If you have a friend, bring them over. Even if you're not like, even if action isn't your thing, it's one of those movies that you'll watch and you go, wow, that was just fucking crazy. And I had a good time with it. And that says something about if you can take a film that, let's say, someone maybe may not normally be in love with, have them sit them down and they'll still have a good time. You've made a good film. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess that would kind of like sum up what I would think about this movie. The best as I could, I guess. What about you, Brad? What do you think?
Well, I think I know this was 94, 95 time frame, but it definitely feels like it's taking a lot of influences from the 80s and like
Yeah,
canon films, things like that. I mean, we are if you like those kind of films, if those are your bread and butter, like I think this fits right in with those. I love it when just guys are like I'm not a gun guy in real life, but watching
yeah,
guys indiscriminately just shoot guns
mm,
and watch another guy roll around on the ground and dodge bullets while he is literally 15 feet from guys shooting at him. Um, he has a special gun that explodes. Like
Mhm.
all these little details that he has. He cries, which I was looking. Drop that pretty much at some point in time because he is killing so many people. He would just be crying tears forever, but like he doesn't cry much basically in the third act. For me, Troy, you're right. Like it does have to hit those three pieces. Like I need a big bad and I
Yeah.
need the action to be fantastic, and of course it is here. And I need that relationship to at least pull the plot along, and I think this does way more than just that. I definitely see their chemistry, um, but I need that third act showdown. Like I
Mhm.
need that when we go to the compound or we go here or we go there and we're raiding something or we're, coming to the final boss. I need that set piece to pay off the
Mhm.
entire 80 minutes that preceded it. Um,
Mhm.
because that's just how these films go, right? Like we all know at the end there's gonna be a showdown and it needs to be good. And here I think they do a great job. It it's got the weird elements like John was saying. It's got the action elements. I think it's like ultimately really rewatchable. Dacascos is really good. I mean, as a straight man, I find him really like super sexy. Like when he is naked, you're like, oh my God, he is super naked. And he's
Yeah.
naked a lot in this movie. Like he is showing ass a lot. Jose would have a field day with this film.
Well, I told Jose about it, and he got excited. He's like, "Oh, you're
Yeah,
covering that one? That's a good one."
yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome.
I just think it's sad that this is so hard to get, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I've had this Blu-ray for a while, and I'm usually not this bad. I usually once I get a movie, I'm watching it.
Yeah.
My to watch pile is not as big as Troy's. Troy's is like another room in his
It
house.
it is. It's an entirely another room.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
right there. I'm right there. I'm not far behind you, Troy, so don't feel bad. I'm really
so
horrible.
to not have opened up this Blu-ray, I think I had this on DVD as well, but I had seen this before, but it's really like to say it's good is like it's underselling this. I think it's
Yeah.
a great action film. It's got a great character. It's got a great premise. Um, it's like a non-linear story a bit, so we're getting flashbacks of Freeman's origin stories and what happened, and oh, that
Mhm.
guy ran into his exhibition and they killed him, and he dropped the film and he develops the film, blah blah blah, and he becomes a killer. All that stuff is done pretty well.
Yeah, I
um
think so.
but at the end of the day, you're coming to a movie called Crying Freeman to see some action, and I
Absolutely.
think the gunplay in here is really good. It's not the best gunplay I've ever seen, but it's definitely pretty high up there. Though
Christoph Gans, is it Gans? Christoph Gans?
Gons,
Yeah.
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 I kept on calling him Christopher by accident. Afterwards, I'm like, I just subconsciously did
Yeah,
that.
no, so he knows how to shoot action,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and he knows what to do with Mark Dacascos.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of just fantastic sequences here where you get just throughout the film, you get to see Yo showing off his skills, right?
Yeah.
My favorite is climbing on the top of a door, mostly naked,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of moving
It's
back.
got a nice jock strap. We can't
He does.
undersell that jock strap.
Yeah, and but he uses, I think, the right amount of slow motion plus regular normal photography to accentuate the action sequences.
Hmm.
He and the editors and the cinematographer know how to shoot it and also know the pacing of action to where they're not doing a ton of quick cuts.
Hmm.
And
I think
the
it helps that Dacascos is good enough to be able to stay in frame. Like we're not having to cut to the back of his head because someone else is doing, the
Yeah.
stunt work. Like
oh
he
yeah,
is
all of those
able to stay
flippies,
in frames. Yeah.
that's him doing the flippies, and they're awesome. And he's incredibly graceful.
Yeah,
So
no, he is. Absolutely.
I think they do a really good job of making sure, to your point, Brad, that you keep him in frame,
Hmm.
you show him off, And there's some great visuals in here, like and they come back to this scene at the end of the film, but her painting and opening the champagne bottle,
And
and it
basically coming all over his face. Like,
yeah,
what is that scene?
but you get like as the drip of the champagne's going over the frame, and it looks like now the picture's crying. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
great shot. There's so many just ridiculously good crane shots and use of camera movement in here that again make the action feel better, because this is an action film that builds into a final 20 minutes where everything's blowing up and you've got
Oh yeah.
all this amazing gun fu, and then it turns into this fantastic sword play that again you would take that sword fight at the end and
Mm,
think about how much slow motion they use in conjunction with just normal time, and that
mm.
action sequence comes off just beautiful. I mean,
No,
it's
absolutely.
gorgeous to look at.
I
I
guess
think that's what elevates
that's
it.
when you have 54 stunt people.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
name another action film that
Yeah,
this is why I've always thought Jackie Chan
yeah,
was the best, is because you can appreciate his action sequences
yeah.
not just for um how much fun they are to watch, but the framing, the inventiveness of it, how they shoot it. I mean, this film does all of that, and
Oh, absolutely.
I think Christoph Gans is the reason why it all works so well.
It's sad because when you look at his career, I think he only has like, and this is the two movies that are like the new Silent Hill movie and that Fatal Frame game that's in post production. I think he only has like 8 credits,
Yeah,
which is it's horrific. Because the guy, it's not his fault. Like like this is a movie, in my opinion, it's bad marketing. Like you, I had to, like you said, you had to pick up it on VHS, a bootleg. I had to pick up a bootleg initially. Like it's crazy that this movie would I think this movie would have done halfway decent. It still might have not played at your local multiplex because the reality is if you're not into like super into Hong Kong movies, people probably weren't too familiar with Mark Dacascos in the States, or not as many people back in '96. But I think this thing could have played at New York, LA, Boston, Chicago, all the big cities. And I think you could have given it a DVD release and you could have pushed a little bit harder. I think it would have made a lot more money back on DVD sooner. And I think there might have been enough interest to possibly generate another sequel. Even if it was like a direct to video kind of thing, I think it would have done well enough on DVD and VHS to generate, a constitution for it. Because if they did, you take $9 million and you get this, you could probably do the same for another $9 million. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think
I'm really curious why this doesn't. I would love some title or some company like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or something to
oh yeah,
release a
absolutely.
4K of this thing, which I'm hoping happens soon, because this needs a proper release. Some
Yeah,
dedication to
the
it.
Blu-ray release, like I have the same one you do, and it's fantastic. The Blu-ray looks good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to my behind the scenes stuff. And even though you have an English track for the movie, none of the behind the scenes stuff have an English track. I think it just has a commentary and maybe
Yeah,
a behind the scenes thing, and it doesn't let you switch that over to English. So it's kind of like you get the movie, and it's better than the DVD format. But
it
I'm not gonna
is.
lie. I
It's
would
still
have
bare
liked
bones compared to what they could do with this.
Yeah,
So
I would love to see the commentary, listen to the commentary. I would have loved to see behind the scenes. All right. Well, I guess
Well, I just this movie also taught me that like bullets just don't harm you at sometimes. She gets shot in the stomach, he gets shot in the stomach. It's like we're fine. We're fine. We're
yeah,
totally
we're
fine.
good. It's listen, it's movie logic.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just kind of got to ignore the obvious stuff. But yeah, no. Well, like I said, I was so glad to have you guys on and talk about this film, and definitely, I guess if it was on your show, I'm assuming it would be that it would fall into the not a bomb category. I'm gonna
Oh,
go.
absolutely,
absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. This would be one of the ones we would push on people quite a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I think initially when I reached out to you, I was saying like, do you want to do it on my show? Do you want to do it on my show or your show? And I think we just agreed to this. But it's awesome, man, definitely. And I definitely down the road love to have you guys on again, and maybe we can talk some other films. You can give me some good pointers I should look out for as far as action films. Definitely some
we
more.
need to get you on the Don Lee train because I think I've convinced Brad now. I
Oh
bought
yeah.
the last Don Lee for you for
Yeah,
Christmas, right?
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
So Outlaws is the one you're saying I should start off with?
Start with the Outlaws, man. I think you're gonna love it. There's gonna be a bathroom fight sequence here. You're gonna go, wait a minute, I've seen that before.
Ah,
And
okay.
yeah, you'll go, oh, that Tom Cruise, Henry Cavill thing, and that Mission Impossible film,
They took it
right
right
out
there.
of that movie. But yeah,
No one cocks their biceps, but it's still pretty good.
Don Lee didn't have to.
No. Well,
Well,
neither
that
did
guy's
Henry
pretty huge,
Cavill.
man. I mean, he that guy's built like a brick house. He really
Yeah.
is.
No, I'd highly. I mean, if that's the thing, if you like Crying Freeman, I think you're really gonna love those Crime City films. And again,
Awesome.
it's weird. It starts with the Outlaws in 2017, and then since they started with the Roundup in 2022, which is the second film, all of
Uh-huh.
the ones to follow have been called the Roundup something else. But
Very cool.
it's another thing. I mean, we were talking about films that don't have a proper release.
Mm.
The Roundup from 2022 on, those films are getting released, but the Outlaws has never been released officially in the U.S.
Huh.
But you can catch it on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Well, I'm
It's
gonna definitely.
yeah, it's so weird. There's another Korean film that's like one of the biggest action films in Korea, A Bittersweet Life. It's getting a new 4K restoration this summer
Uh-huh.
outside of the US. It's another
Okay.
film that has never been properly released in the United States. So there really are a bunch of movies that you can get that are really
Uh-huh.
good from Umbrella Entertainment or the
Yeah.
UK or something of that nature, but they have yet to find like a US distribution. So you
Yeah.
can take like Bittersweet Life, Crying Freeman, The Outlaws. I mean, there's a whole list of films that if and you don't even I think need an all region player for these because there's a lot of them that are being
That are
released
region
um,
free. Yeah.
that are region free. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, the reality is the region free thing, a lot of them are becoming, they're getting smart and they're releasing a lot of films region free. And then honestly, I still say to tell people, I always say if you can afford it, definitely get a region player because there's sometimes there'll be films I've run into where they're out of print here in the States and they're charging insane prices on eBay. But
Yes.
with that region free player, you can get like a region B release for $20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
I think Dragon from Russia. I don't know if it had because the DVD I have is a UK one that's region B, but I don't know if that's ever been released over here.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray of it, and I want to say it's a Region B Blu-ray. Because I use my Region Free
Yeah.
player for everything. I think I just popped it right in, so I don't even know, but I think it's a Region B
Yeah.
release. But yeah, but it was definitely good stuff. Well, thank you guys again for coming on. Like I said, it was great. Do you guys have anything you want to talk about with Not a Bomb? You want to promote anything? Anything we should look forward to?
Well, we're smack dab in the middle of remake month, so we were looking back at some of the biggest bombs that were remakes. So far we did Psycho, Total Recall. We're doing Get Carter, and then at the end of the month we're doing Ghost in the Shell. So look forward to those. Our 4-year
Awesome.
anniversary show is coming up soon as well, which is a scary thought.
Oh man, 4 years, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think
Very, very
June we're
cool.
doing sword and sandal films. So
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet, sweet. You
Every
guys
once
do.
in a while, we like to do theme months just because we have so many recommendations and so many films. It's like we've got to like get a centralized theme to just help. Like, okay, we can knock out those 4 or 5 films because they all fit this theme,
Mhm.
and then we can move on.
Are you going
So
to cover
yeah,
with the remake coming up? Are you going to be talking about Deathstalker?
that's June
that's yep. Don't
That's
worry
for
about it.
June.
for sword and
June.
sandal. Yeah, I mean the whole sword and sandal thing was because I went back and watched Deathstalker 2. That's like one of my favorite films from the 80s. I mean, you can have your Conan the Barbarian or whatever. I'll take my Deathstalker 2 all day long.
Well, I'll tell you what. I still haven't seen the other Deathstalker movies, but after you talked about it a couple episodes ago, I think the episode you guys had where you had the guys from the role playing,
Oh
Oh,
um,
yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you
Yep.
talked about, it, and I sought it out on either Prime or it
Dragon
might have been.
Slayer.
And that second one is a lot of fun. It's a blast. It's
Second
definitely a
one's
good.
amazing. I mean, there's 4 of them out there, I think. Maybe 5? 4.
Yeah.
I have a little set. I think it's 4.
Is it 4?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they're actually making a new Deathstalker film right
Yeah.
now.
And you know what it
Um,
is? It's the guy Steve Kostansky who did Manborg,
yep.
Psycho Gorman. He did all the effects for Father's Day. So
I'm really
yeah,
excited for that. But yeah,
yeah.
I just and Deathstalker has a comic book series that just came out in April too. So there's a new comic
Oh,
book series. It for whatever reason just became super popular. I have to assume it's because Brad and I talked about it.
Mhm.
that's it. You guys, you worked your magic, and then all of a sudden, people are like, "You gotta go see Deathstalker. It's been out since the '80s, but all of a sudden, we gotta throw
Absolutely.
some life into it." That's
Yep.
awesome.
Hey,
So,
everyone can thank us for the Phantoms 4K, so you're welcome.
Oh yeah.
oh well, I don't know if we should be thanking.
No.
It's funny because all I kept on hearing for years, because like a lot of people view a skewed person, Kevin Smith universe is that line from you were the bomb and Phantoms, you know what I mean? And then I had all this hype to this movie, and I'm like watching it, and I'm like, okay, it's watchable, but really, like, what? Where is all the hype leading to? All this hype, and I expected so much of a better film, and it like I said, it's watchable, but I
It's a
want it
film I
more.
never thought would get a 4K. We Brad and I have this ongoing joke where we would talk about a film and then
Sure.
about 3 or 4 months later, Kino Lorber has a new 4K coming out. We're like, are you kidding us? But there was a time there. I feel like we would talk about a film, 3 weeks ago by, and then all of a
Mm.
sudden they're releasing a new special edition of it.
Mhm.
So we even talked about like Gene Hackman's Narrow Margin, which has a great Blu-ray on it. And as soon as we release that episode, they're like, oh, we're gonna do a 4K version of that now. So
Well, that's
if we
crazy.
if we talk about Deathstalker, because those films are really hard to get a hold of, I'm hoping there's like a new, I don't know,
Like a
4K
box set or
release
something.
of at least number two. So
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Well, again, thank you guys both for coming on. I'm gonna give a shout out to you guys, of course. Make sure you guys check out Not a Bomb every week. Besides their main show, they also have Not a Bomb Classics, where they talk about a classic film. I guess this month you guys are going to be talking about, right? Fritz Lang, is it,
No.
if I'm not mistaken, or
maybe,
or
We're
I don't know.
we're
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 trying.
we've
well,
got four people on that, and getting four people together has
oh,
been,
so it's still the juggling. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, I understand. It's the
We'll
scheduling. Yeah,
we
not a
promise
problem.
4 episodes or 12 episodes. We'll get 12 out. Don't worry.
Trust me, no, I'm not like, listen, I'm just grateful the content that I get from you guys. I know how difficult it is to even get one episode out a week, especially now that I'm doing it primarily solo again. So the fact that you can even do that, those special episodes are just icing on the cake. And trust me, I'm sure all the people that are fans of your show are grateful just to get that. And like I said, throwing them a bone with the extra stuff is just awesome. So we're
We
all,
try.
always looking forward to that. So I want to give a shout out to you guys, of course, to my buddy Jose and Alex over at Watch Skip Plus. Definitely check out their show, guys. Every week they look at the stuff that's playing at the box office and determine whether you guys should watch, skip, or and see if it's worth your time. And I give them a lot of credit for that, because I can't commit to going to the movies every week as much as I love to. Plus, there's weeks where I'm just like, I don't know if I really want to sit through this. So
Exactly.
so, of course, got to give a shout out to them. And then finally, The Godfathers, The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Sam and Will. Every week, these guys broaden our horizons, and they have exposed me to some really interesting films that I've never even heard of half the time. I don't know where they dig some of these films up. And then, of course, they have like mainstream stuff. Like I know when you were on, they talked the one week they did Roadhouse. So they have such a wide variety. So those
Which
are all
is
shows.
getting a sequel. I'm super excited about.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I heard
Yeah.
about that. We'll see if our buddy, what's his name? I can't think
Connor.
of it. Yes, we'll see if Connor comes back with his swagger. His
Uh,
the Connor
maybe.
McSwagger. So, but yeah, that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all my listeners, and again, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks
Uh,
for having
I
us.
look. I'm not sure what I'm going to have next week, guys, but I will announce it sometime during the week. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will see everybody soon. And let me just hit. Oh, okay.